In September 2023, I started my northbound through hike of the Northville Placid Trail. But by the time I reached Piseco Lake, I realized I'd overestimated my abilities, especially looking ahead at some much more aggressive distances. So I did some replanning at the inn on Piseco Lake, got a ride to Long Lake and stretched out the remaining hike to Lake Placid with some more realistic daily mileages for me. Roughly 80 miles in the books last September, 60 to go. I returned to Piseco Lake in June 2024 with plans to finish the section I skipped last fall. Keep watching to see if I completed the trail or if I came up short again. Wednesday, June 26th. I met two other guests at the inn who were also continuing their northbound hike, so we agreed to hike together for the next 3 days to Wakely Dam. There was rain in the forecast for later that day, so we got on the trail early. Our destination was Spruce Lake Lean-To Number 3. The trail was marked well and was in generally good condition for the first 5 or 6 miles. As you get closer to Spruce Lake, conditions get more rugged. We arrived at one of the best lean-tos I've ever stayed at, right on the shore of Spruce Lake. Thursday, June 27th. It rained last night and we woke to overcast skies. Today's destination was Beaver Pond / Cedar Lake Lean-To Number 2. We didn't know it yet, but today's hike was going to be really challenging. Yes, there is now a bridge over Sampson Bog Outlet. By the time we reached West Canada Creek Lean-To, we were ready for lunch. South Lake and West Lake were very scenic. Get ready to wade through water due to extensive beaver activity after the trail register at the former ranger station. I've never seen as much blowdown as I saw today, mostly fresh too. We were exhausted by the time we arrived at the Beaver Pond / Cedar Lake Lean-To Number 2. An even better location than yesterday's Spruce Lake Lean-To Number 3. Friday, June 28th. It was forecast to be in the 40s last night and I have no doubt that it was. We woke to clear, sunny skies. Spirits were high this morning. We had family who were meeting us at Wakely Dam at the end of the day and today's hike ends with a road walk. We were soon on the trail, facing the usual muck and blowdowns but not as rugged today. We stopped at Kerry Lean-To for lunch and then continued. As hoped for, our families were already at Wakely Dam when we arrived. We said our goodbyes and headed off in our different directions. For me, it's a day off in Indian Lake with my sister. Saturday, June 29th. My day off the trail was mostly rain, light sprinkles at some points, steady at others and downpours overnight. My sister and I had a Verbo reservation in Indian Lake and it had a washing machine and dryer. Jackpot. Stewart's is practically an obligation when I'm up north, so I walked down and got myself a maple French toast coffee. We then drove down to the corner store at Blue Mountain Lake for breakfast. It offers a nice selection of food, supplies, souvenirs, and bakery items. We spent a good part of the morning checking out the shops in Indian Lake and Blue Mountain Lake. In the afternoon, we went rail biking via Revolution Rail in North River. It was a steady rain for most of the trip but still quite enjoyable. Then back to the rental to finish laundry, repack and get ready for the final push to Long Lake. Sunday, June 30th. Back on the trail. With the heavy rains last night, I expected higher water crossings and sloppier than normal conditions today. It was still overcast skies when I signed in at Wakely Dam. Conditions were sloppy but water crossings weren't bad until I met a trail crew just before Browns Brook. They were heading toward Wakely Dam, so they had already been working the trail that I would be traveling. I truly appreciate the hard work performed by these trail crews. Unbeknownst to them, they would be facing a huge blowdown shortly. They warned me that slop and high water were going to be a concern, especially as I got closer to Stevens Pond. And they weren't lying. At least the trail was mostly clear. I arrived at Stevens Pond lean-to and quickly changed out of my wet boots. Today's hike was shorter than usual. Over the afternoon, I met 7 campers and 3 dogs who had hiked up to the lean-to from Lake Durant. I had a hard time keeping the campfire going that evening. Almost all deadwood was still wet from last night's rain. Monday, July 1st. Today's plan is a bit shorter than yesterday's, with my destination being Tirrel Pond lean-to. I packed up a little bit of the trash at the lean-to and headed toward Lake Durant. The trail was in fairly good condition, of course with the typical muck and blowdowns we all love. I made it to Lake Durant State Park, bought my day-use pass and enjoyed a few amenities including a picnic table, a flush toilet and running water from a tap. Eventually I got moving again, crossed Route 30 and signed in at the trail register. The trail was in pretty good condition. There are always obstacles, but there was also a good system of planks over most of the wet areas. The first view of Tirrel Pond at the spur trail to the O'Neill Flow lean-to is quite something. Soon you're skirting along the west side of the pond and eventually to Tirrel Pond lean-to, not right on the water but not far away. There was a group fishing when I arrived and 2 other hikers arrived shortly after. All in all, a good day. Tuesday, July 2nd. My last day on the trail. Just a short 10 miles to go to the trailhead on Route 28 and outside Long Lake and completion of the NPT. I didn't know it yet, but today's hike up and over the NPT high point was going to be very challenging, and it didn't help that today was starting to warm up. The Beaver Meadow is quite striking, but be aware that there is not a bridge over Chickadee Creek. It looks like there may have been one, but it is just a rolling log now. After some acrobatics crossing on the log, I tackled the uphill climb. Lunch was a welcome break somewhere near the high point. I rested for quite a while before starting the descent. By the time you get to Sandy Creek, the trail is pretty flat to the trailhead, and I was on my second wind. The bog bridges near Shaw Pond are pretty impressive. I wonder how much that area has changed since last year's washout. Before long I heard cars on the highway and I made it to my car at the trailhead.
Just as unassuming and quietly as I had started the NPT 10 months ago in Northville, I completed the trail in a quiet and lonely trailhead parking lot. I think back to the times I've driven past that spot, not knowing what it had in store for me. There is cell service, so I notified family and friends of my accomplishment. Then headed to Stewart's for a few drinks before I started heading back home to Virginia. Back to the real world of responsibilities, work, chores, errands, and my waiting cats. In summary, I had a wonderful experience. Yes, you'll find your fair share of blowdowns, muck, and rotting puncheons. You'll also meet great people and see inspiring landscapes. Certain sections tested my abilities, but overall the NPT was worth every bit of effort. Happy 100 years NPT. I certainly was privileged to experience the people and places in this part of the Adirondacks.